everyone, and welcome back to our Golden 20s podcast. My name is Tegan, and I am joined with my co-host Sadie.
Hello.
And we're here this week to talk all about dealing with the spring, fall time change drama that always happens at this time of year, how to embrace the darker days and ways to kind of try to beat some of the winter blues, some ways to make your life a little cozier, all of that good stuff, because we are recording on the second day of the time change and it is crazy how dark it is so early.
I know. Every year I'm like, how do we go through this every year? Like, it's so jarring, and you'd think like we'd be used to it or it wouldn't be so jarring, but every year I'm like, damn, yeah, it's dark. Yeah, it's early.
Yeah, it's brutal, especially here in Canada. I know it's not as bad in other places. Like, I remember one year I went to California in January, and on the plane there was like sun coming in the window, and I was like, I haven't seen actual sun since October. Where, so obviously, like, if you live in California, you'd be getting the sun all the time. But, you know, for us northern gals, it gets very dark, very cold very quickly here. So we should hopefully have lots of experience and lots of hacks to share. But before we get into that, I thought we could do a connection card.
Great. And it's week 1 of the very deep category, right?
Yes. And I'm scared.
Okay.
We'll see. Yeah, so we are in the purple category, which is the deepest. This question is, are you happy in your body?
This is deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad, it's asking that now, because I think I'm the happiest I've been in my body in years. I think I've been very open about my body image issues on the podcast since we started this podcast, like going on for 5 years ago. I guess 4 years now. But in any case, my story, long story short, through the pandemic, I was experiencing the worst adult acne ever, the worst skin ever. And that quickly spiraled into me nitpicking everything about my body, me being so hard on myself for gaining weight since I was not super active through the pandemic, me beating myself up about that, and just like completely taking a toll on my confidence and like changing how I spoke to myself. Like, usually I'm very like cheerleader for myself, for my internal dialogue, but the past few years were rough, where I was constantly beating myself up, pointing out all of my flaws to myself every time I looked in the mirror, and it just really wasn't good. However, I was copped on that it wasn't good and hired a personal trainer. I worked with them for pretty much a year, 2 years ago, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And then also hired a therapist who we have had many sessions talking about body image, especially since I've been in a lot of weddings over the past few years. These are photos that live forever in people's houses, and they're like, you know, memories, their most important day of the year. And I'm in these photos not looking or feeling my best, having skin issues. All of this being said, we've really tackled a lot of body image talk and therapy. And as a result of both of those things, I'm definitely in a much better place now. There's still days where I catch myself looking in the mirror being like, oh my God, when did this happen? Why aren't my jeans fitting today? You know, like, I still have those days, don't get me wrong. But overall, it's not like I jump out of bed and analyze my skin in the mirror first thing in the morning anymore, which I was doing for months and years the past few years. So we're making progress. Happiest I've been, in years.
I love that. That's so good. Congratulations on...
Thank you. Sorry, I ranted.
This point.
I ranted, but I was like, long story short, and then I just told you guys the long version.
No, I think that's good, especially like if people have been listening for 4 years, they know the whole story. But if there are new listeners, they wouldn't know the whole background of it. But
and I think the other thing about like my story, not to be dramatic, is people who deal with acne. I never dealt with acne before 2020. And I remember just being like, it's not a big deal. And like, why do these girls go on Accutane when Accutane's so bad for you? And like, you know, I just couldn't understand it. And then once I got acne, I was like, oh, I get it. And I get how this spirals out of control so quickly and how all of a sudden, yeah, you just hate everything about yourself all because it started with a few pimples on your face. Like, it's actually wild. So all of this being said, if you're dealing with acne, I get it. There are brighter days ahead. Hang in there, you know, put in the work to try to figure it out and talk to somebody about it. And, you know, like it's worth going through the motions of assessing different parts of your lifestyle, going through trial and error with, you know, different foods, different topical products and skincare products that you can use. Like, I don't know. I think the work is worthwhile doing because having going through it now, I'm like, okay, I understand how awful this can be and how stuck you can feel. But yeah, there is definitely light at the end of that acne tunnel if you are going through it right now.
I love that. Yeah, I feel like for me, it's like yes and no, where I found that the last couple of months have been very, very stressful. And that's had like, it's made it so that I'm not consistent with any routines at all, like no physical activity. I still like play sports, so there is some physical activity, but compared to like 6 months ago where I was doing something active pretty much every single day, that's like not really where I am right now. And same with like doing skincare routines and eating healthy and all of the stuff, even just like the way stress really affects how I look, I find. So yeah, I would say that it's probably, I don't know, it's hard to say, like thinking back on COVID times, if I'm feeling sort of similar to how I felt then, because during the COVID times, I was preparing to get married. So that was kind of keeping me motivated as well. So yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely, I think, like overall pretty happy with my body. I feel like I've said this before, but I feel like I have like positive body dysmorphia where everyone I see around me, I think are tall and skinny. I assume that like most people I encounter are skinnier than me and taller than me, when I've recently learned that that is not always the fact because I'm quite tall. So all this saying, I feel like pretty good about it. I also find that I don't look at myself that much, which helps. And this was like a big shift for me going to virtual work, where there would be times where I would be like going to work and barely even looking at myself before I left the house, where now I look at myself every day for hours. And it's kind of like, it was the start of my whole hair journey because I was like, I'm just tired of looking at my hair and seeing it look like shit. And so there is also an element of that where I just find I'm looking at my face more. And obviously, as I'm getting older, my face is aging. And I'm like, I don't know really how to feel about it. And it's the same, like I have more gray hairs and I'm like, I don't know how to feel about it. Like part of me is like, I think I should get it dyed to cover it. But then I'm like, am I just thinking that because that's what every single person does? Like, do I actually want to do that? So all of this to say, I'm having like a lot of weird body changes, but I just don't know how I feel about them. So I'm just like living my life and we'll see. So there is the potential in like a month, 2 months, 3 months, we have like an episode about something and I'm like, I've decided to dye my hair or I've decided to get Botox or like whatever. And I think that that would be fine. But at the place I'm at, I'm just like, I don't even know what the hell is going on. So
that's okay too.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's my crazy story to be like, I don't know.
You're like, I think so, but I don't know. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And you bring up an interesting point around like getting older because I feel like that's another thing where, we're in our last year of our 20s. And I definitely also have more gray hair than I did like 3 years ago kind of thing. And that's a whole other layer on it that I didn't even think about. But for me, I'm like, my motto is aging is a privilege. I'm one of those people where I'm like, you know, let's just embrace it kind of thing. But yeah, I feel there's so many things. And the one thing that I keep trying to tell myself is like how I know this is cliche to say, and you're told this all the time if you're someone who is self-critical or has body image issues, but like literally nobody else knows or matters because they're so obsessed with themselves.
Yeah.
And I think about that where I have to be like, girl, you're obsessed with yourself, like, and other people are just as obsessed with their self as you are with yourself. Like nobody's paying attention to you, nobody cares, nobody notices, you know, like, I don't know. I feel like that's something I'm constantly reminding myself.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have had times in my life where I have been like very skinny, like times as a teenager where I was a size 00. And I can honestly say I've never been at that time looking at other people and being like, oh, they're pretty large. Like the thought, you just aren't really looking at the world that way.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's 100% true. Like everyone's just kind of concerned with their own thing. And that's why I feel like it's valuable to be like working on your body in ways that like bring you joy. Because if you're doing it for like external validation and things like that, it's just never going to happen. Like you could always be working for more and more. But like in some of the episodes we've had talking about physical health, it's like I'm working out because I want to climb a mountain, I'm working out because I want to dance all night, and like things like that I think can actually be valuable and motivational and rewarding, as opposed to like I'm working out because I want to be told I'm skinny. Like
and they contribute to a better quality of life, you know what I mean? Like so yeah, body image is interesting. I feel like I'm hoping moving into my 30s I can like make peace with, like, I feel my 20s have really been diving into who am I, why am I this way, and who do I want to be, where I feel like what I want out of my 30s is to just, like, accept who I am and, like, accept why I'm that way. And obviously, like, life is one continuous, like, learning and things change and, you know, you're always learning about yourself and always growing and evolving. So I'm not expecting that to be any different, but it just, I want to be in a place of, like, self-acceptance rather than, like, always over analyzing myself and justifying things for myself. And I don't know. Yeah. It's just like, let's just enjoy life, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's not that deep.
Yeah. We say after rambling on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, there you go. First question of the blue category. So
it was pretty deep. Yeah. Even though we're like, it's not that deep. That was a pretty deep question.
Yeah. And it's also, I think it's lucky, like we've had many episodes talking about this. If anyone is listening and is like, damn, these girls are just like talking about body image pretty openly, it's because we have had practice.
Yeah. And like you said, we've like brought people along the journey. So it is kind of interesting to see our growth from like past episodes where we've talked about this. But anyway. Yeah, I feel like that almost kind of maybe ties into today's episode because I feel like the winter blues, the dark, cold days, the days where you're hibernating and you're feeling sluggish, like I feel all of that really impacts your mental health, and that could also impact your body image and, you know, just how you're feeling overall about yourself. So I feel like, you know, we're going to spend the next little bit chatting through how to keep your mental health top of mind, I guess, through those dark days and how to embrace them.
Yes, definitely. I think one of the first things, I feel like I've said this already like 5 times this month, but I'm going to say it again. Embrace like the exciting parts of the seasons. I am someone who it's like, it's November. Yes, I'm so excited. It's December. Yes, I'm so excited. And I'm surrounded by people who are not like that. And I'm like, it's because you're not leaning into like the fun of these months. Like I am listening to Christmas music. I'm watching the cozy movies. I'm like making the seasonal food. I'm wearing the festive sweaters, like really leaning into it. And it makes it so much better. And this goes past Christmas even. Like it's like you're leaning into the January 1st, New Year's. You're leaning into Valentine's Day. Like, I think that that really can transform your life, looking for these like magical moments in each month, as opposed to being like, I hate the winter, so this sucks. Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, if your attitude's like that, of course you are going to hate it. And of course you're just going to sit at home and be like pissed that it's January, but like January is going to come no matter what. So you might as well be trying to find like some magic and joy in it.
Yeah, I love that so much. And I feel like That's the magic of like romanticizing your life. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, we've talked about like romanticizing those small mundane moments, but it's like romanticize the season, romanticize the month, because every
Yeah.
month of the year has something special about it. Like some sort of holiday or some sort of
Mm-hmm.
even national day or, something to look forward to. So, yeah, lean into it, embrace it. I love that so much. I think in the spirit of also leaning into and romanticizing the day to day, I think keeping consistent with your routines is also really important during the winter
Mm-hmm.
months. And why I say that is because I feel like we've also talked about, like leaning into the slow pace and cozy and hibernation of winter. And I also do think that is important and like has a time and place as well. But I often swing too much that way. Like I lean into things a little too much, where all of
Mm-hmm.
a sudden I'm feeling sluggish, and it's because I'm not staying consistent with my day to day routines. So my day to day routines are really rooted in like cooking for myself, cleaning, making sure my space is clean and clear. So that also helps keep my mental health clean and clear and help keep me relaxed, especially if I'm busy with like holiday gatherings and parties and stuff like that. Like the last thing I want is to come home to a like chaotic apartment. I also make sure to like work self-care and my self-care rituals into my day-to-day routines, having time for myself in the mornings and at night, staying consistent with my skincare routines, like the number of times a week I wash my hair, like literally everything is so routine in my day-to-day. And why it's that way is because these are the things that make me feel my best. So I think keeping that in mind while also leaning into like cozy, slow living, hibernation season is really important for me.
Yes, definitely. I think speaking of routines, one thing that's major for me is keeping a consistent sleep routine. So we just had the time change where all the times went back an hour. And I was like, I'm waking up at the same time. So I normally wake up at 8. That means for the time change, I'm waking up at 7 because I don't want to risk messing with it. And I feel like this can be so easy when it gets dark. I'm very passionate about like not being in bed unless you're like sleeping. So like I don't like eating in bed or things like that. And obviously there are moments like if you want to have a rot day or you're feeling sick, like stay in bed. Like it's not morally wrong or anything. It's just like something that I'm passionate about and my sleep doctor is very passionate about. But I find that when it gets dark so easily or so early, it can be so easy to be like, oh, it's 8 p.m. I'm just going to sit in bed and watch
Mm-hmm.
TikTok. And then it's like, this is how you spiral into then it's 11:30 and you can't fall asleep because your brain's just now like, we're staying up because we're in the TikTok zone. So I'm very passionate about that, keeping that routine, deciding like when you're doing certain things and sticking with it, even if you used to do it and it was light out, and now you're doing it and it's dark. Also, no blue light before bedtime. So my phone I do not use usually past 10:30. And I now have smart lights in my bedroom and they turn red at night. So all my reading I'm doing with red light. I don't know what the neighbors think of what's going on in my house, but it's what I do. So, yeah, very passionate about the sleep routines at this time of year, especially.
Yeah. And we've talked so many times about using technology as a tool to like enhance your life. So we've talked about, setting your sleep schedule on your iPhone. But I follow some girls on YouTube who have like a whole evening routine programmed to their Google Home or Alexa where it's like, yeah, it turns the lights a specific color at a certain time, starts a
Yeah.
specific playlist. Like you can really lean into this, romanticize this as well, but it also holds you accountable. It's like, oh, my playlist is going. Guess it's time to wind down and yeah, start my night sleep routine kind of thing. So wanted to mention that. I also think if you're having a hard time staying accountable, maybe try a habit tracker. That really helped me in shaping my routines. And anytime I start to fall off, I start to use it again just to like get me back on track. I think the last thing I wanted to mention, Tag, on the whole sleep routine, I'm the opposite. Well, I'm not the opposite. I totally see where you're coming from for the whole like don't do anything in bed except sleep. Like I get that. I'm someone who could like lay in bed all day every day.
Mm-hmm.
which is a problem, like you were saying. But I'm very much like, yes, I read in bed for like an hour to 2 hours every night before I go to sleep. In the morning, I love to have my first few sips of coffee in bed while I'm journaling and or reading, and always cuddling my cat. So I spend a lot of time in bed. However, I'm also very keen on a consistent go to bed and wake up time. And for me, as someone who can sleep all day, every day, lay in bed all day, every day, I find through the winter months, it's very easy to oversleep because, like you're saying, it's like, oh, it's 9 p.m., it's dark out, I need to go to bed. That's how my brain processes it. Plus, like, oh, it's 7 in the morning, it's still dark out, it's cold, and I'm just going to snooze for another hour or something because I'm also a chronic snoozer. So having those consistent times, what I'm trying to get at, helps me prevent oversleeping, which I think I've talked about on the podcast before. Through the pandemic, I was definitely oversleeping, and that actually made me feel more tired and more sluggish, where it made me feel worse, essentially. So I think that's something else I just wanted to add to the whole consistent go to bed, wake up time.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like, speaking of trying not to like eat in bed and things like that, I found one thing that really helped, especially if you live somewhere cold like we do, is to create dedicated spaces in your home where you do like dedicated activities as a way to like fight the cabin fever. So coming up with a plan of like, where are you going to sleep? Okay, you're going to sleep in the bedroom, so that area is for sleep. Where are you going to exercise? Like, if you don't have space to exercise, you're not going to exercise, period. So it's like coming up with, I have a yoga mat. Where am I going to store it? How am I going to set it up? Where am I going to watch my yoga videos? All that sort of stuff. Where do you like to read? Where do you like to eat? And coming up with those designated places and then keeping those tidy and organized can really help with staying in a consistent routine. Like, if you want to be more active at home, but all of your exercise gear is piled like under all your Christmas decorations and you have to dig it out every time you do it, like, that's not going to be a habit. You're never going to stick with it. So this is a part of it as well, I think.
Yeah. I love how you bring up feeling cabin fever, because that's something else that I've struggled with for years, ever since working from home full time. And it's something, again, I feel like I've been very open and honest about in past episodes, where working from home, living alone, being an introvert, somebody who loves spending time alone, I would not get out of my house enough. And this was especially true during the fall winter months where it's dark at 5 p.m. I felt like since I'd been working from home all day, once it got dark outside at 5 p.m., this is more like last fall winter, I was like, okay, I guess everyone's just like at home, going to bed, like the world's not continuing to spin because it's dark outside. As soon as I would go outside, I was like, oh, no, wait, everybody's out still living their life like normal, but in the dark. And I feel like, I don't know, that was the reminder I needed for myself. And I feel like now that I'm going to the office, I'll be a little bit better with this, but it's something I'm very cognizant of moving into this fall winter, knowing it was such a problem last fall winter. But in any case, my solution for this is to make social plans. And this can look many different ways, but essentially it's you setting up time with friends or scheduling a class of some sort so that there is a time and place for you to be somewhere else other than your apartment. You're getting out in the world, maybe preferably, especially if you live alone, socializing with other people, because when it is dark and cold, it's really easy to isolate yourself and always choose staying in over going out. So some of like the ways I work this into my fall winter routines is signing up for a class. I'm a big fitness class person. However, last winter I did like 2 different candle making classes. I've always been interested in cooking classes, wine making classes. Like, there's so many things in a big city. Even small towns, I feel, have lots of like workshops and classes and things like that to sign up for. In fact, here in Canada, I don't know so much about the States, but a lot of city and towns also offer a lot of like recreation programs through different seasons. And the winter is often one of like the bigger recreation programs. And this is things like different arts and different sport programs and things like that, because people are looking for things to do when it is dark and cold out. So look for that. In the city of Toronto, I think they're posting theirs, like the schedule, the week that this episode drops. So if you're a local listener, look for that. The other like pro thing about this, or like huge benefit about this, is it's often extremely affordable or even free in some cases. So if you're like, okay, I don't go to a gym or do yoga classes because like I just don't have the budget for that, look into locally organized recreation programs because yeah, they're often subsidized. You could also make plans with friends. So maybe like Tegan and I are going to see a musical. You could also make plans to go like to the movies or see live music or a concert with one of your friends. Also, lots of sports are in season right now, like the NBA, NHL, even if it's not professional. There's even like probably lots of local sporting events going on in your area. Same with museums or making dinner or brunch reservations with a friend to catch up, going for coffee or after work drinks if you don't want to go out for a full meal. Like, I think these are just fun things to do with friends. You could also commit to doing a dating challenge. So if you're single and you're like, okay, I don't have like, I don't know, friends to meet up with for these types of things, maybe you turn them into dates, or maybe you challenge yourself to go on one date a month or one date a week or one date a month or whatever it is. Maybe you challenge yourself to sign up for dating events. Like there's so many things you can do to kind of create a challenge for yourself on the dating front. And then, yeah, you could be tackling some of these things like going to the movies, concerts, sporting events with a date instead. I'm just going to keep firing through my list, but I'm nearing the end of it. It's also with the holidays coming up, I feel like there's also just lots of social events going on around that. If it's holiday parties, if it's holiday markets or events, things like that, keep an eye out for those. Again, oftentimes they're free or very affordable just to go wander around. I mentioned that for me, a big game changer this year compared to last year is that I'm in the office twice a week. So it is forcing me out of my house, which is nice. But I think for people who are permanent work from home, if it's an option to go to the office, like maybe you explore that through the fall, winter, just again, as a way to change up your scenery, get out of the house, maybe socialize with people in your office, that sort of thing. And then the last thing, this is less social plans and being social and more so just like getting out of the house, but maybe you organize a little solo date for yourself if it's one night after work or if it's on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you go to the library, or maybe you take your book and you read at a coffee shop, or you make a dinner reservation for one, like just treating yourself to a little solo date. It doesn't necessarily, doing all these things doesn't necessarily have to be with someone else. But again, for me, I try to make them to be social since I spend so much time alone. But in any case, if you need some time for yourself because you're the opposite of me, you can do all of these things by yourself as well.
Yeah, I love that. I think especially if you're someone who like say doesn't like Christmas and you're like heard our little rant about romanticizing things at the beginning and you're like, yeah, I get it, but I hate Christmas. Like I get it too. My grandma died over Christmas. It's not all good vibes at that time of year. But I think like setting up these things that you can like have things to look forward to can also help, even if they're not seasonal, or it's like you like Christmas is a bummer for you, but you're going to have like a dinner party. And that's something for you to like look forward to and plan and, you know, get together with people. Like things like that, I think are a really good idea.
Yeah. Love it.
I also wanted to mention that you should be trying to embrace the daylight while you have the chance. And this is so hard because if you are a working gal, a lot of times it's dark when you leave for work and it's dark when you're leaving to come home from work. But I think it's really important to just try and get some sunlight. I do this by trying to wake up early enough to get sunshine. So not just like waking up and running out the door, having time to like open the blinds, chill, drink my coffee, read. It's like through a window, but still counts. And making time to go outside during the day. Like instead of taking a walk after dinner, you're like, maybe I'm going to take a walk on my lunch. And that sort of thing can really help.
Yeah, I love that so much. And definitely is important. I was telling Tegan before we started recording, I was in meetings all day at work today and I didn't get a glimpse of outside until 4:30 and it was already dark. Meanwhile, like you said, Tag, it was kind of like a cloudy day here anyway. So when I went into work, it was dark. I was in meeting rooms all day, no windows.
Yeah.
Come out and it's dark again. I'm like, okay, here we go. But in any case, yes, find that daylight while you can.
Yeah. I also think it's important to try and keep active during this time. Like, obviously,
Totally.
it's fine to slow down. We talked about this in the winter arc episode. That's kind of just normal. But at the same time, like, your body needs physical activity. It also sucks when it's really cold. Like, you don't want to leave your house. You don't want to leave your cozy bed. But it really is important for like your mental health and your physical health to maintain your active energy. So I love yoga at this time of year because it's not like too hard, but it's not too easy, and you can usually do it at home. I also love long outdoor walks, especially at this time of year when people are putting up Christmas decorations. It can really help you feel festive. And there's also Pilates. I do that at home as well. But all of these just to keep your body active.
Yeah, people always underestimate how important just getting your steps are. So it's like, yeah, you don't need to commit to, you know, even going to the gym. Like, just get out for a walk, get that fresh air, get that daylight, and get in those steps. I also love the mention of home yoga. Through the fall, winter, I love my home yoga practice because I wear like fuzzy socks. I'll take like a blanket, a pillow to my mat, where it's like, yeah, the time I'm in Shavasana before and after my practice, I'm so bundled and cozied up, but then I, you know, go through my flow, and it's like a win-win, essentially, leaning into the cozy, but also still keeping active. So I love that. Maybe similar, but not quite. I had trying a new hobby on my list, and why it's similar, I feel like yoga is a hobby, and, you know, working out can be treated as a hobby. But if you're like, okay, girls, I need more than just being told to work out, I think you could also lean into some things that are cozy activities, or even things that are like kind of productive. Like for me, I consider cooking and baking a hobby, but it also helps me like meal prep for the week. You know what I mean? This is maybe a weird thing to say, but I wanted to, before I go into some more examples of what hobbies could look like, I feel like I've been getting so much content on TikTok saying how important hobbies are for mental health. And I 100% agree. I also feel like as I get older, I don't know, it's just interesting the relationship I've had with hobbies, because as a kid, you know, you're like signed up for extracurricular activities and all these things are your hobbies. But then you reach high school when you maybe pick up a part-time job and that takes over everything, or at least it did for me. Like, I quit the basketball team, didn't do any band because I just wanted to work and make money. And then when I was college, same thing. I didn't do any extracurriculars. And now I'm an adult and I'm like, okay, I work 40 hours a week. I need something outside of work to look forward to, and like that I do in my free time. But it's hard to just like pick up a hobby after not having one for so many years. So anyways, I feel like that's kind of the narrative, around hobbies on TikTok. But I also feel like hobbies are the new side hustles. And I know that's maybe like a hot take, but it's like, again, we're millennial girl boss era millennials, where in my early 20s, it was all about side hustles and monetizing every single passion, where I feel like the pendulum swung completely the other direction right now, where it's cool to have hobbies, not to have side hustles. So I don't know. If you're looking for more ideas, go to TikTok, because there's so much content on this. Things that I was seeing and kind of resonated and I wanted to share with you guys. I already mentioned cooking and baking, but it could also be something artsy like knitting, crochet, embroidery. I've also been really leaning into junk journaling. Tegan got me into that and I love it. Same with like scrapbooking, whatever you want to call it. Could also be painting, even if it's a paint by number, or coloring and like doing a coloring book. My sister recently gotten into Lego, which is such like a therapeutic kind of like wind down activity, but also you have something like tangible at the end to like put on display and stuff. So I feel like that's rewarding. Tegan and I are both big readers. And then a few other things that I'm kind of like maybe reconnecting with, or like interested to reconnect with. Video games we've talked about in past episodes, where it's like cozy video games like Animal Crossing, Harvest Moon, like that type of vibe. Again, lots of these hobby creators I follow are pro gamers, which again is like a narrative change from when I was a kid where video games were bad. But in any case, puzzles, I feel like I've wanted to pick up a puzzle the past few weeks and I'm like, who am I? But it just sounds so cozy and fun. And then another big one that I see all over TikTok is like DIY floral arrangements, just getting like different florals from the grocery store every week and like turning them into your own arrangements to have throughout your house. I feel like that could also be a fun hobby to adopt as well. And then my last piece, sorry, I have so many things to say about this as well, but I feel like something that I struggle with is still feeling like a hobby needs to be productive, which hobbies are to wind down from being productive all the time. But in any case, if you also struggle with that, if you're someone who celebrates Christmas and you give Christmas gifts, I feel like that's a great way to justify a hobby when you're just starting out, because maybe you can use some of these crafts or hobbies to gift people for the holidays. So maybe you're, let me think of an example, like baking. You could bake somebody like Christmas goods, or if you crochet, like maybe, or embroidery, sorry, not crochet. If you embroider, like maybe you embroider them a shirt or something, or on a shirt or something like that and gift it for them. I don't know. I feel like it's just something you could keep in mind if you're struggling to show up and hold yourself accountable to your hobby.
Yeah, I love that. I have been seriously considering some crafty gifts this year because it can be quite difficult, especially like now that I'm married, we have to buy so many gifts for so many people, like outside of the monetary thing. It's just hard to keep track of, where I'm like, it would be so nice if I could just like craft a big pile of gifts for a bunch of people. So I'm considering it. We'll see. I'm not going to say what it is in case I decide to craft it for Sadie. So stay tuned. But yeah, I love that. I also just got into puzzles like maybe a week and a half ago, where I now have a puzzle set up on my coffee table currently. But yeah, I have been loving that as well.
Yeah. And I feel all these things, like you don't hear, binge watch your favorite TV show or like scroll TikTok, but I'm like, all of your TV show can still be playing in the background while you're doing these hobbies. You know what I mean? Like all I want for my month of November is to rewatch The Vampire Diaries, but I'm probably going to have it on in the background while I continue my junk journal and while I'm baking cookies and doing all these things that are bringing me joy, So it's like you can still do these things where like on screens, just in the background while you're doing your hobby,
Yeah, I love that. I think the last thing I had was just, this is kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, but I'm going to reiterate to just embrace the cozy vibe, like really romanticize things, lean into it, because this really helps. Like, yeah, it gets dark at 5 p.m., but that's just an excuse to light like a bunch of candles and really curate the candlelit vibe. It's chilly, but that gives you an excuse to be in your like cute socks, a matching loungewear set, and you get to be cooking hearty recipes and you're listening to like cozy Christmas jazz and just like really curating the vibe. This is the biggest thing for me to feel better at this time of year.
I love it. We love being cozy. It's the best. Awesome.
Great.
Well, there you go, guys. All of the ways to embrace the dark, cold days that are ahead of us, and some cozy hobbies to try, different things. So we hope this episode resonated with you. And if you are going through a hard time, also we're going to just plug, talk to a therapist, talk to your friends, like all of that as well. Journal it out, that sort of thing. But in any case, we hope these things help support you through the winter months. We drop a new episode every single Tuesday, so make sure you are subscribed and following us on whatever app you're listening to this to. We'll be back with more self-care, cozy episodes in the weeks to come. You can also find us on social media. We're at Our Golden 20s. That's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We have Pinterest, boards, Spotify playlists, and we're also on Patreon, which is the best way to support the podcast. You get early access to all of our episodes, as well as completely ad-free episodes. But that is everything for this week. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Bye.